All right, welcome back to another gallery with me, edit, fiasco, bonanza, everything. uh, yeah, welcome back. We're gonna go through another photo gallery. This one is kind of more in the production, music, live event space. This is a youth retreat for Tulsa Church. Um, I just shot kind of the beginning of the last session of um, the last session of the retreat. So this is basically just the last couple songs of worship at the front end, and then there's a speaker, and then typically they'll do another song or two. Um, so yeah, the typical flow of this is there will be kind of a game at the front, and then worship, then speaker, then more worship at the end. Um, but just like anything else, I like to import into Lightroom from the camera, and then I will cull through. So I just set it on library mode, set it for single photo, and then I flip through very quickly, and I'm just kind of looking for cool compositions or cool lighting. Um, and typically I'll take photos in kind of like a burst as well. So I'm looking for the best of that burst group. And it's interesting because in scenarios like this, the lighting changes so quickly that when you are in burst mode and you're grabbing, you know, um, 3 shots back to back to back, each of those shots can be so different. Um, and so that's just something to keep in mind when you're cutting through here, is that, and I oh yeah, I think I was doing something while I was editing this, so it kind of froze for a second. I wasn't sure how long that was gonna last, but anyway, yeah, I'm just looking for cool, unique light. I think that's kind of the cool part of shooting stuff like this, beyond like the spiritual factor, is just that every single photo is going to be just so different. Um, yeah, those hands. We'll get back to those hands. That's one of my favorite photos from this entire set. Um, and so yeah, the lighting in here. If you've never shot something like this, the settings might scare you because it kind of just it breaks your mind of any, like if you're used to shooting at 100 ISO or 200 ISO, like it probably makes you want to scream looking at the settings, which you'll be seeing. Like you can see them going by pretty quick here at the top right, under the histogram. Um, but on the low end, I'm shooting at 1600 ISO. Most of the time, I sit right at about 3200. That's kind of my comfort zone with the A7R5. I don't really like shooting higher than that, uh, because it's 61 megapixels. It's really difficult to get away with any higher than that. Um, yeah, so I'll come back to the gear in just a second, but something I want to note on this, um, this blue light that they had in there. I was talking to another photographer about this. It's really challenging, because it's so saturated. So even when you try to bump the white balance to a different level, like you can see the crowd is even more blue. Some of that I was trying to mitigate by just masking them and bringing in as much warmth as possible for that. But you'll see here, like I can get the skin tones right, but the background's kind of crazy. And later on, I think I go back and I do kind of like a background mask, and I bring it all the way back. Yeah, so you'll see there that kind of levels it out, but still lighting was not. I mean, from what it was, that's a usable, portrait photo or, like, little I mean, do you call a photo with 2 people a group photo? Like, what do you call it's not a single anyway. Um, so, yeah, you'll see, some of these faces I might have to, kinda block out. I might just black out the screen if it's, people I can't show or whatever, um but yeah, some of the workflow of this, because normally I use Imagen, and for this, I didn't want it to kinda screw up my algorithm that I've been training, because this is dramatically different. Like, the settings in here are not they're not gonna translate of, outside of a room like this. So, so I wanted to make sure that, that it didn't screw that up. So I'm, where was I gonna go with that? I don't know. Oh yeah. So each of these photos is going to be edited kind of one by one by one, um, which is not very time efficient. Um, but I think sometimes you can get better photos because you're being pushed more creatively. Uh, which stuff like this I love for that because it is so much more about what happens in the moment than it is about your skills, in directing, um, which if I'm being honest, it's not my strong suit. Like this kind of room, this is my strong suit. I just get to roam and take cool photos and catch moments. Like that's what I'm all about. Um, so to get to do something like this, yeah, it's a privilege. And it's also a time where I get to kind of show off some of my other presets that I don't typically use. Um, so I don't know if this was like 6 months ago, but yeah, maybe even longer than that. Um, I went on a trip with my family, and I my little sister had bought this disposable camera. You know, just like disposable film camera, like those of us who grew up in the 90s would have had at any if you went to camp, your parents gave you one so you could take photos. Like, we just didn't have phones and whatnot that could take photos of any decent quality. Um, and so, she brought that, and we got them developed, and I was like, "Man, there's just something about this." And that's not even, like, just a film thing, that's just, like, the quality of something about how bad it was made it good. Like, I don't even know, how to describe like, that doesn't make sense, but at the same time, it does. And so I built a disposable camera, um, preset that's kind of just based off of my own preset, but then it's really just dirtied up with noise and, some different, tone curves that kind of, uh, what is it? Eclipse the blacks, and yeah, there's a lot to it. I mean, you can really do a deep dive into, like, film emulation and all that. That is, like, the tip of the iceberg, I think, my disposable camera preset, and then I made a black and white one, which now I'm almost using that more than I'm using my normal black and white. Sometimes it's just a little too noisy, so I'll go in and speaking of noise, I'm actually testing out, I saw this in a wildlife, uh, some guy was editing wildlife photos, um, and he selected the background, and then he dropped the texture of the background, and it cut the noise. I was like, for, photos that you don't really wanna spend the time to denoise, that might be worth it. Also, this is an example of
when you have an idea that like, oh, maybe I can make her stand out and dehaze and push this guy in the back. And I abandoned it. I said nope and rated that thing as 0 and moved on. I was spending way too much time on it. Um, so yeah, but some of these, oh man, just what a black and white will do to a photo, like the difference in colors and contrast and all of that. I love this one too. I don't know why, but like I think the skin tones just look so good on that the person nearest. I just like the energy too. Like you can just feel it when you look at this photo. Um, but yeah, what a cool room. I mean, they had 3 projectors. They had one dead center that projected the lyrics, but also some of the graphics, and then they had 2 on the left and the right that crisscrossed. And I don't know how long they spent lining those things up, but it was seamless. Like it was really, really well done. Oh yeah, I love this one too. So as you'll see, if you're watching kind of my left and right panels, sometimes I choose the disposable camera preset. Sometimes I choose my normal preset, which is preset 4. I just haven't named it, you know. I just I did an iteration preset 1 and then I'll adjust it and go, yeah, okay, it's time to update it. Preset 2. And so now I'm on preset 4. I should probably update it to 5 because I'm liking more noise now. So maybe I need to bake in a little bit of noise, um, but yeah, maybe I'll talk about some of the techniques I'm using lighting wise because uh, when you edit enough of these photos and you're not as scared of the noise, um, it kind of frees you up, honestly. I was talking earlier about shooting, 3200 ISO. Um, the real trick with shooting high ISO is nailing it as close as possible in camera. Um, I think a lot of people, a lot of presets that you'll get, one of the first settings that it does is it drops your highlights by, you know, 20 or 30. And in situations like this, I find that dropping the highlights, like that's gonna drop you a whole stop of light. So if you're paying close attention, most times you'll see my highlights are in the positive. Um, Mainly because when you have a spotlight and then you remove the highlight, like that is the only light. So you have to kind of play around with it. Sometimes I'll raise, I mean, that's a really good example. My highlights were at 40, my whites were at 40 or 50. Um, you just have to play around with it. And sometimes the saturation can be a bit much. That's a good example of the difference between the disposable camera preset and my normal one, but they both have kind of like a unique character to them, which I love. Like, man, that one too. I really love that photo. My Wi-Fi was out when I was recording this, so I was kind of wondering why my generative AI wasn't working on that. But anyway, I love photos like that where you just take away one thing and it just cleans the image up so much. Perfect. But anyways, I'm kind of chugging along on these and um man, yeah, like gosh, just look at that red light, just getting lost in it. Oh man. It's such a fun like this kind of stuff. I could just shoot day after day after day. I mean, it is definitely challenging creatively because maybe there's only so many shots of hands reaching up in the air that you can get, but it pushes you. This is a really good example actually of what I'm just talking about. Uh, I've been trying this more lately of just doing random rotations and seeing how it changes the photo. Um, I thought that was a pretty cool one. This also, when I remember taking this and going, yeah, that I don't. That's crazy. Like just the lighting, the pose, and everything. Um, but yeah, and then some of them are more. I don't know. I don't know if other photographers feel this way, but okay, I'm gonna put a pin in that because we hit like my favorite photos, which I might use one of these. I guess you'll know if you click on this video, but I'm probably gonna use one of these as the thumbnail of this video. But I think that color shot is one of my favorites from the set, probably top 10 at a minimum. Um, and I don't know why. I think part of it is the bloom coming from behind. Um, but anyway, what I was saying is I don't know if other photographers feel this way, but there are there are some shots that you take for creativity, and there's other shots that you take to document, and they're kind of like equally weighted because if you only take one, then anyone who's looking at at your gallery doesn't get the full like weight of the story. So there's like the storytelling documenting photos that they're not glamorous. They're not going to be your lead photo, but if they're not there, something's missing, you know? And so I find sometimes I have to mentally tell myself like you need to take this photo even though it's not the composition isn't amazing. Like it tells the story. It gives the context. It helps somebody like be in the space. Uh, so yeah, I don't. Maybe leave a comment below if that's you. If you resonate with that. This photo is actually a really good example of uh, kind of how far you could push things if you know what you're doing. And so I tried to get the colors to work. I just couldn't. And I really wanted to focus on this one subject here. Um, but the foreground people who were more lit up were really distracting that. So I think I put like 5 or 6 masks on this front person to try to bring the exposure of them down enough that the actual subject or who I wanted the subject to be would stand out. But this just goes to show like um, nobody's gonna know how many masks you put on a photo. So go wild. Like sometimes you really got to push a photo and see how far can you really take it. Um, but yeah, the live environment, I mean, this is improv on steroids, literally. Not literally, figuratively. uh, because they're like everything's changing so quickly. There's nothing that stays the same. And while that can be a little intimidating if you're looking for a specific shot, once it's kind of like treading water in the ocean. Like once you embrace the fact that you're not going to be out swimming like the current and you just decide to float with it, it's a really like cool and chill experience of just going, whatever happens, I'm just going to capture it. Um, and I think as a photographer, it's kind of, especially in this space when you're just trying to capture like what it's like to be there, the energy in the room. Um, I think that's an important skill to kind of hone in and a mentality to follow. Because if like, if I walked into this room and I was like, I want to get this specific shot, like, I might be disappointed. But if I walk in with no expectations of what I want to get, then every time I take a cool photo, I'm impressed. I'm not like comparing that to what I wish I had gotten. Um, uh, that probably resonates across multiple things, not just photography. Uh, it's kind of a life lesson in general. um, but yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what we find getting to kind of witness other people in moments is really cool. And I don't know how many other jobs get to do that. Like, not a lot, that's for sure. But you'll see kind of as we close in more on this gallery that I'm using that disposable camera preset a lot more. Like I'm kind of diving in on the grungy, like noisy colors aren't super accurate. Um, I've been punching the the greens in my shadow, like my tint. I've just been leaning more towards green lately, and I don't know. I just like it. I like it a lot. I probably won't like it in 6 months, and I'll look back and go, "Ugh, why did I do that?" But yeah, I don't think I'm ever gonna look at my black and whites and hate them, because there's something about black and white. This one, I couldn't push this photo far enough. I think I ended up trashing it. Um, I thought it could be cool. I don't know. That's the cool part about shooting raw too, is like I can always go back and edit later, if I wanted to. This one is another one that was in my top 10. Um, yeah, man, I can't wait to make a post with these. The only thing I didn't like about it was the this group kind of here in the bottom left was a little distracting, so I just wanted to drown them out a little bit. But yeah, like man, that negative DA's just made that photo. Like, mm, mm, love that. Yeah, this one turned out pretty cool too. That like tealish blue. That's the cool part too about environments like this. You can kind of like nobody really knows what the light looks like in the room, so you can crank that temperature, that tint slider. You could go crazy with the color grading panel too, which I didn't even like. I barely touch, if I'm being honest. That's probably an area I can grow in, is trying to use the um, color grading tab. I have like a little bit of warmth in my midtones, and that's more so that the skin tones look better. But yeah, there's some absolute wizards out there that use the color grading panel, and hey, like, go for it. That's not me yet, but when I do figure it out, I'm coming for all your jobs. That's all I'm saying. This was a cool one too. I was really trying to push that like negative clarity, dehaze. I wanted the light to kind of like wrap around her. Um, I think I took it a little too far at first, and then I kind of dial it back. But sometimes I really like to, like I said before, push photos and see how far I can get. And I was getting a little too noisy, so I ran a little bit of denoise. I find that 20 works well. 20 is like almost indistinguishable, um, especially if you're adding noise back. I feel like anytime you use denoise, you got to add a little bit of noise back because it's just too smooth. Like nothing's that smooth. Um, and the other thing that most people don't think about is like these photos are viewed on a phone, most likely. Like most of them will never be printed out and blown up. I've got, how many is that? 5 or 6 um, prints in my office. And the biggest of those prints is a 3 foot by 2 foot. And it's shots that I took on an A7 III that I probably heavily cropped. that I shot at 6400 ISO, and you just don't like. It doesn't matter. The noise doesn't matter. So I don't know. Maybe somebody needed to hear that. Like, it's okay to shoot high ISO. Like, relax. You don't have to shoot everything at 200 or 100 ISO, and um, as long as you're having a good time with it and your photos are in focus when you want them to be in focus, then shoot at whatever settings you want to shoot at. Like, if you only shoot on auto, then great. Maybe that's just your art. But if you shoot on auto, let it be because you choose to shoot on auto, not because you don't know how to shoot something else. That's my only request. As your friend. Yeah. Uh, uh, how many? I should have done a shots of hands counter in the bottom corner, just so we could have seen at the end of all of this how many shots were just of hands. But yeah, I mean, hopefully you can, as you look at these with me, you know, it's been a day or two since I've looked at these, but hopefully you can feel the emotion in it. Like, that's what I tell most people when I shoot events, that I want you to feel like you were there when you look at the gallery. And if I did that, then I've done my job. I've done my job well. One thing, and I've got a couple minutes here left, but one thing I didn't mention is if you look on my left panel, you'll see a drop down called Custom Adaptive Presets. And if you didn't know, you can make masks like AI selection masks. You can make those a preset. So I have a preset that I use every single time that I edit a gallery, and it's called Subject Pop. I just clicked it, and uh, basically it just makes a subject selection, and then it just bumps the exposure and highlights like just a touch. Um, but stuff like that really can enhance a photo. It's not about something that makes a photo, 3 times better, but it's about the, 10 to 15 things that make it 10% better, stacked on top of each other, that make great work. And so, yeah, if you've never heard of those or you don't use them in your current workflow, I would encourage you, try them out. And before this photo passes, I loved editing this one because it feels like they're in a cloud, like pumping that dehaze into the negative. Ugh, it just gives like this like depth of fog and atmosphere. But anyway, like I do with every gallery, I go back to the beginning and then I do a final flip through. So yeah, if there were any photos that you were like, that's my favorite, let me know down below. But thanks for listening to my voice for a solid 28 minutes or 29 minutes. And I'll see you next time.